So let's get started, Roderik. Are you ready for this?
Yes, let's give it a go.
Excellent. So, dear friends, it's wonderful to have you here every week with us. Thank you for joining. Today, our guest speaker is Roderik van Kessenich. Roderik studied engineering. He is an entrepreneur and an expert in sales and marketing. He created a computer graphics software development company and launched PC Slide in Canada in 1985 and later in the Netherlands with the first software to develop and design high-resolution 35mm slides on an IBM PC. The forefather of PowerPoints, if you could put it that way. His clients included companies like Shell, Philips, Unilever, and they used the software for their board meetings. PC Slide was sold in 1999, and Roderik could have retired at the age of 38, but he then became a serial entrepreneur and an investor. He currently co-owns a number of companies and has invested in many other startups.
Correct.
Roderik, welcome to our Instagram Live. Thank you for accepting to be our guest today. You are a born entrepreneur who never worked for any other company but your own. You've lived and worked in different countries. You've changed the course of your life many times, and we could say you are successful. So what is your story?
Thank you for this nice introduction, Nadia.
You're welcome.
And let me try and tell my story in a way that is interesting for the public. Now, my father was a diplomat, and I'm of Dutch origin, so it's also my name, Michiel van Kessenich. It's a Dutch name. And being the son of a diplomat, we moved around the world a lot. And actually, I never lived in my home country, which is Holland. And this gave us a very international upbringing. And one of the, we lived in, I was born in Paris, we lived in Africa, we lived in London, New York, Toronto, Vienna. My parents moved to Hong Kong. So it's a little bit all over the place. And the one common denominator was always the school. We went to the French school, the Lycée Français, and I have many very nice friends from that time, including Gilles and yourself. In one of those stays, when we were in Vienna, I actually was in the class. At the time, I didn't know it, but she was going to be my wife. So at the age of 16, Claudia and I were doing the same homework, if you will. and quite a few years later, we got married. But after I stayed in Vienna, at the age of 16, I went to Canada. And Canada was very important for me. In Canada, really defined the road ahead for me.
Right.
I did my last 2 years of school. I studied engineering for 5 years. And that university was very interesting. It's the University of Waterloo, and it's a very entrepreneurial environment. There's quite a number of students are encouraged to start their own businesses. And I found that Canada gave me a lot of impulse to start my first company. I actually started my first company as a student, and it was called CompuKit. And what we basically sold in those days, there was an Apple II, which was a computer. It was very expensive for the students. So we made a kit of all the components, and you would get the board and you'd get the components and you would solder the components onto the board, and then you would go to the lab and you would debug the board and make your own computer. Right. I mean, we're talking 1982 or something like that. So it's a long time ago, but that was the first endeavor I did as an entrepreneur. And that was a lot of fun. Didn't make any money, but that's okay. It was a lot of fun. And this, as the nice thing at the that I had at the university, we had to write a thesis. And a thesis is typically a document that you write about some research. And I asked the dean of engineering if I could please write some software, because I was more interested in writing software than I was interested in writing a report. And in fact, that I have it right here. I might as well show it. This was my thesis.
Wow.
From university, and it actually became a product that I could sell. And that probably sets me a little bit apart from other people, is I would prefer to write a piece of software during my studies than doing something else. So I was trying to make something concrete, which I could then sell at the end of my, when I graduated, which I did.
Which you did, yeah.
And this software, you already said it, it was the first program on an IBM PC with which you could make high resolution. Maybe people remember these 35 millimeter slides. They're very small. You put them in a projector and you project them on the wall, and then you have your presentation.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't have beamers back then. So the beamers that we all know today with PowerPoint and a laptop didn't exist. So we either had overhead slides or we had 35 millimeter slides. And I was at the forefront of this technology, which was very exciting because it's super high tech and you get pretty pictures. So it's the combination of really nice images made with very high tech equipment. That was I found that was sort of my destiny. That's what I wanted to do. I then decided at the age of 26, I'd never lived in my own country. I'd never lived in Holland. And I was getting very well established in Canada. And I sort of said to myself, if I stay any longer than the 10 years I've been here, I'll basically stay here forever. Which isn't bad, because Canada's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I love Canada. Never a bad word about Canada. It's a wonderful place. But I'd never lived in my home country. So I moved to the Netherlands and started a company there, while still running my company in Canada and bouncing back and forth for about half a year, until my company in Holland started to take off. And that's when I got married. I was back in Europe. And one of the things I am, if I define myself, I'm a very convinced European. I mean, you can put me in Holland, you can put me in Austria, where I live now, you can put me in Germany, you can put me anywhere. But I like being in Europe. Europe is my home. The thing that we had in Holland, and that's maybe one of the takeaways, I'm trying to say things that might help people in starting their own business. The thing that we were in Holland, we were in a very small niche, but I was the main dog, the numero uno in a very small niche. And in my experience, it's better to be a big player in a very small pond than to be one of many in a big pond. Because a lot of people will go after the big market. But big markets have big players, have big competition. And looking back, I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, I say that was probably a good decision to just be number one in a very small niche. The other thing that I had, and again, I didn't realize it when I was young, but we were making presentations for the top brass of Dutch corporations. And when I say top brass, I mean the CEO, CFO, who makes important presentations. It's usually the very high-end management. And we had amazing customers like Shell, Ahold, Unilever, the Port of Rotterdam, 600, we had 600 clients making these high-end presentations. And that was an amazing experience, because I was like 30, and my customers are as old as I am now.
Right.
Right. I'm now going on 60. Yeah. At the time I was 30. And looking back, in those days, I was always the youngest person in the room. Always. Now, when I go to my startups, I'm always the oldest guy in the room. So that is a transition, yes, from the youngest in the room to now being, well, I just said it, right? Now, the company we had in Holland was quite amazing, looking back. I really enjoyed doing that. And after 12 years, my wife and I, Claudia, which I'll talk a little bit more about her later, on our 10th anniversary, we were in Austria. We were standing on a mountain, and we were looking on our life. We had three. I'm very much a family man, and I have a wife and three boys, three sons. And we were standing on top of a mountain, and Claudia and I, we said, well, do we want to do what we're doing right now for the next 10 years, 20 years, whatever? And we said no. So we decided on our 10th anniversary, standing on a mountain, we're going to do things differently now.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't know exactly what we wanted to do. We did know we wanted to make a major change. And about 1 year later, I had sold the company, and we had moved from Holland to Austria. My wife, by the way, is Austrian. Yeah, so it's Holland is my home, Austria is her home. So we moved to her country, and we've been living there now for since 1999. So that's about 22 years. And that's maybe the next takeaway that I'd like to give people. We were never afraid to rock the boat.
That's right.
To rock the boat. And that has worked well for me and for us as a family. So this is something I would give other people, and I try to instill that on young people. Don't be afraid to take a risk. I moved to Austria. I could have always moved back. I mean, don't be afraid to rock the boat. The other thing I did is that I had a number of companies that I started, and they didn't all work, right? You hear this more often, right? They don't all work.
No,
so they don't always work. So the takeaway I have there is if at first you don't succeed, just keep trying.
The other thing, keep going. There's just a technical glitch.
Should I keep going? She said I should keep going. Okay.
There was an echo. I've sorted it.
Okay.
There.
And so that's my story. I came to Austria, and in Austria, we started, I invested in a hotel, I invested in different startups. I became a graphics designer for a while, doing quite a few different things and enjoying doing that. Is that enough of an answer?
That's plenty. I'm loving it. So you, as you said, you've teamed and worked with Claudia, your amazing better half, for most of your life. How do you make it work?
How do we make it work? Well, I think we're a very good team. The most important thing we've achieved, we both believe, is to have a wonderful family. That's number one, right?
Right.
Beside that, we do most of our things together. I mean, a lot of people, they sort of go, oh, that might be a little too much for me, but we actually work together. We love traveling, so we travel together. We have common hobbies. We play golf together. Something we love to do is to go biking. My wife and I, we've biked over the Alps several times. So you have a bike with a very small bag on the back, and then you go biking for many hours and many up, down. And we start in Germany, and then we bike through Austria, through Switzerland, and down to Italy, to the Lago di Garda, the Garda lake. And that is something we love to do and we love to share. And the nice thing about doing something like that, it's not free. It's wonderful. You have beautiful things you see, but it's also hard work. And so it's very rewarding to bike across the Alps. It's something we love to do. Now, why does it work for us? We often get asked this because most people say, well, I could never spend that much time with my partner. And it's probably not for everyone, but a large component as your relationship grows is you need a lot of respect and admiration for each other.
Yes.
The butterflies that you have at the beginning, it's very nice, very wonderful, but that's not going to get you through 33 years of marriage, right?
Right.
Then you have to work together and grow together. And I think respect and admiration is a very large component in a good relationship. And the other thing that Claudia and I have, and I truly believe this is true, is the sum of the parts. I mean, parts, that's just a woman and a man in this case, but the parts together are stronger, I'm convinced, than if we were alone.
Yes.
So we are a strong couple. So the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And the takeaway here, if I may say so, I would say that choosing your partner is probably the most important decision in your life. I've changed my work often. I've learned new things often. I've crashed and burned in my work, and I've had my successes. That's easy. Building a solid family, you want to get this right. You really want to get this right. And if you get this right, then it gives you a lot of strength to cope with all the other stuff. So that would be my takeaway for working as a team. But you know this because you also work as a team, Nadia. So why don't you say something?
Well, you've said it all, the respect, the admiration, learning from each other, and also giving each other space. And yes, definitely the sum of the parts is bigger than, each part can ever be. So thank you. That was beautifully said, Roderik.
Yes, and I think one more thing. I think if somebody asked me, would you do this again? I would say yes. After 33 years, I would say yes. I'll go this road again. So I think to me, that's a very, very, well, I think people understand what I mean.
Definitely, definitely. I love it. I love hearing this. This is music to my ears. You have such experience. What is the biggest opportunity you have faced in your lifetime? Why? And what shift did it create in you, in your behavior, or in your ecosystem?
Okay. Well, a lot of it is fate and luck. I was lucky to be born in a loving family. My parents were very supportive. They gave me a lot of love and encouraged me to develop into the person that I am today. And I often say I'm in those, and my mother is probably the person that formed me the most. Yeah, my father was often away from the office, but my mother is the person that sort of created me, if you will. She also, or my parents both, gave me the confidence to be who I am and to go into the world with open eyes and unafraid, which is a blessing. It's a blessing. The other part, I already mentioned it before. This again, it's by chance because my father was posted in Canada and I started studying in Canada, and I had a really good university. I really loved the place. And I had 5 wonderful years that really formed me and gave me the entrepreneurial spirit that I have today.
Yeah.
I probably would not have gotten that as much at a university in Holland. I don't think so. So that was very important for me. I was also able to be in Canada, it's very normal that you study and work. You work and you study, you work and you study, you study and you work. And this made me financially independent at the age of 20. At the age of 20, I was able to pay for my studies. So I really made my own way from a very young age. So again, that is Canada that made it possible. The next thing that is probably a good opportunity is you have to be at the right place at the right time.
Yes.
And for me, that was computer graphics. Computer graphics was in its infancy, and I helped develop this market. And the market life cycle of what I did was about 20 years. And I started at the beginning and I ended at the ending, and all 20 years I experienced, which was an amazing ride, the computer graphics that I did. So, but nowadays, and that's the takeaway for the people in the audience, you have to find something that is new, that you love to do, and that might be biotech right now is very hot. It might be crypto. It might be blockchain. It might be there's a new drone research center popping up. So there's a whole bunch of new things happening. And if I were born today and I was doing the road again, I would go into one of those niches and try to become an important player in a small niche. That's what I would do now. So that's doing the right thing at the right time in the right place. And the last thing that is a huge opportunity for me now is that I'm able to work with startups.
Yes.
This is the most fun in my daily job, to work with young people that are full of dreams, energetic, full of ideas, just like I was when I was 25 or 30. Right? It puts you back in time. It's really nice, and it energizes, and it helps you to think out of the box. Yeah, which is really nice. You think out of the box because that's typically what startups do. So those were my opportunities.
Excellent. Excellent. Are there any anecdotes you want to share with us?
Anecdotes. Well, I'll leave that for the end because for a takeaway. Yeah. So I have a few takeaways that I'll save for the end.
Okay. So you're often invited to speak as a keynote speaker. Where do you get the confidence to speak, and why do people listen to you?
Well, I hope they listen to me. I'm not always sure about that.
Sure they do.
In my case, I like learning by doing. So once you do something more frequently, you tend to get better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with sales. Sales, Gilles said this, when you're selling, it's 95% perspiration and 5% inspiration, which it's hard work, right? So putting in the work gets you to where you want to go. The other thing, obviously, is training, right? Get the right training. That's basically what you do. Is you train people in communicating, but not just that, in being positive about themselves, believing in themselves, because there's a very important saying: if you don't believe in yourself, nobody will, right? So you have to believe in yourself. You have to be confident in yourself. And if you're not, you can learn this. This is not magic. This is not born. It's not, yeah, some people are born with it. But other people, they work at it and they learn it. So that's a very important message. The other thing in speaking is you have to be authentic. You have to be authentic, and you have to believe in your message, right? I mean, it's very difficult to stand there and be enthusiastic and say, okay, guys, let's do it. And you're not believing in it. So you have to be a believer of what you're saying. The next thing I would say is you really have to be passionate. You have to be passionate, and you have to be enthusiastic. And if you're motivated yourself, it sort of rubs off on the others, right? it's a nice effect that if you do it well, then you can motivate the others to go for the same goal.
Exactly.
So that would be my take on keynote speaker.
It's the energy you put out that comes back to you.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Well, that's basically probably what you teach in your course.
Yes.
Right?
Actually, totally. Yes. Totally. So we're in 2021, and yet in most parts of the world, many women with equal or better skills than men get the short end of the stick when it comes to equal opportunities and equal pay. What can men do to contribute to improving opportunities for women, both in the corporate and in the entrepreneurial environment? Any thoughts?
Okay. Come again?
I said, any thoughts?
Yes, I have some thoughts. Let me just arrange them. Well, the first thing we shouldn't be doing is distinguishing between men and women in the corporate environment. We obviously do have differences between men and women. I mean, I'm never going to have a child, and that's just the way. So there are, but we should in the corporate environment, in the work environment, we should not be distinguishing between the two. And of course, women should always get the same opportunities as men. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to talk about this issue, right? It should be such that there is no difference. The other thing we have to remember, which is very important, women make up half of humanity.
That's right.
I mean, that's a lot of resource, a lot of intellect, a lot of intelligence, a lot of power, a lot of resources. Resource may be the wrong word, but a lot of human capability. Yeah. And if we're not treating that equally, then we're missing out on a huge opportunity. So that would basically be my message, is that I think an environment where equality is total, the results in the end will be much better.
Absolutely.
That would be my message.
Thank you. I totally agree on that one. Now, Roderik, when I think of you, the following words come to my mind. Obviously, serial entrepreneur, startups, talent, confidence. Why are you always excited by startups, and what would you recommend to a younger Roderik in the light of your experience?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. It's, when I started my company as a young entrepreneur, the word startup didn't exist.
Nope.
The word mentor didn't really exist. The word, there were no investors. There were no, the whole ecosystem of startups didn't exist.
No.
So we basically started a small business, and we called it that. And we were on our own. There was no ecosystem. Nowadays, there's a wonderful ecosystem.
Yeah.
So the thing I would tell young people to do is, if you want to start your own business, go talk to people. Go talk to people like me, and also young and old. Try to get a mixed bag of people, and go find a couple of people that you like and that you respect and admire, and ask them, will you be my mentor? Will you be my coach? A lot of people that are retired have an immense wealth of an experience that they are more than willing to share. I mean, people are often afraid to ask, but if you ask somebody that has really achieved something and you say, could you please help me? They're not going to say no. They're always going to say yes. Yeah. So that's number one. Get an older person. I would love to have the Roderik of now when I was 25. Yes. I mean, I was successful. Now I'd make a killing. I'd be 10 times as successful, having made the mistakes that I made. I made lots of mistakes. right? And so by falling and standing up, falling and standing up, you might have avoided a few of these pitfalls. And that helps, right? So that's point number one. The other thing is that for young people in a startup, don't be afraid to fail, because the chance is very high that very few people are very successful the first time around. They exist, there are exceptions, but let's face it, most people, they try once, they try twice, and in my case, my third company was a home run. Yeah, but it was my third, not my first. So that would be the second thing I would say to young people starting their own business. And the other thing is, don't start your own business if you're not willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
That if you want 9 to 5, go 9 to 5. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Go 9 to 5. But if you want to be self-employed, you have to put in the mile. It's I don't know anybody that is really successful that didn't really put in the effort. It's hard work.
It is hard work.
And ask my wife. Well, you probably have I mean, Gilles did the same thing. You did the same thing. Claudia did the same thing. We all worked enormous hours.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
there's no magic. There's no magic. It's hard work. So that's what you have to bring to the table. And the other thing that I found in startups, which I think is interesting, is that the most important thing in a startup is the team. It's not even the idea. The idea can change, will vary as people are working on the project. I mean, I have 2 startups that are doing something totally different 2 years later than when I got in. I got in, we had an idea, we invested in it, we went in this road, and then we saw, wait, there's an opportunity to the left, let's give that a try. And we did give it a try, and it turned out to be better. So bright people, enthusiastic people, hardworking people find opportunities. They find them. They find them. So that is you don't have to have the best idea.
No.
Just start with doing what you think is right. And as you progress, your idea will change as you perceive the market in a different way.
So you have to keep an open mind and be flexible as
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The market is, and you have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to change on a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. That's what the startup has as a big advantage over big corporate. Yeah. One of my startups right now is cooperating with a very large corporation. Now they came to us, and the CEO said, "I need this, that, and whatever." I can't really talk about the project, but and we asked him, "Why aren't you developing that yourself?" And his answer was, "If I try to do this in my own company, they talk about it for 3 months, then they write a proposal for 3 months, then they think about it for another 3 months, and before anything gets done, a year is over. And I'll be lucky if I get anything on the road within an acceptable time." And that's why he outsources this to a startup where things move very quickly.
Exactly.
So that's the advantage of the startup, moving quickly.
Agility, says one of our auditors here.
Yes.
Absolutely. Basha, thank you for the word. So this brings us to the anecdotes, Roderik.
This brings us to the anecdotes.
For our audience?
Well, okay. I'm a big fan of quotes and sayings. Yeah. And there's a famous saying that says, "Follow your heart." I think that's a very important one. Follow your heart. Steve Jobs said it. Many other people said it, and I think that's very true. So it's going to be very difficult to do something very intensely and with a lot of energy and a lot of hours if you don't love it. If you don't love it, it's going to be punishment, right? So working hard on something is fun if you love it. right? So you have to follow your heart. The other thing I always recommend people do is to get out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because when I sold my company in Holland, a lot of the people around me, they said, why are you doing this? Such a good company. It's so successful. Why? I mean, what's wrong with you? Right? And the path of least resistance, is to just keep doing what you know how to do. You're good at it. As you progress, you get better at it. And you just can keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to have a wonderful life. So, but my advice is get out of the comfort zone. That it's more fun, right? The other thing, and a number of people have said this, including one of my favorites. He's an amazing Austrian living in the States now. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has an amazing career, and it's interesting to see how he started and where he ended. And he says, and I agree with him completely, don't listen to the naysayers.
No.
People are always going to explain to you why it ain't going to work.
Of course.
Right? They're always going to tell you it's not going to work. It's not going to fly. It's not going to do this. It's not going to do that. It's going to be a real problem. Right? Now, you don't want to listen to the naysayers, because it just gets you down. Right? So we don't want to do that. And the other thing you have to have is an attitude of the glass is half full. Right? There's the glass not half empty. No, the glass is half full. That's an important one. And what I enjoy doing, and this is also necessary for my startups, I said before, in the startups, I'm always the oldest guy in the room. Now, when I have meetings with these really smart and bright young people with all the energy, I don't want to be the old man in the room.
No.
That's a challenge. That's a challenge, because you have to be at the top of your game if you want to sit there and talk with these people about new ideas, brainstorming, thinking out of the box. So I love that part of my work, but it's a challenge. So you have to always keep learning. You always have to keep learning and learning new things, new subjects, right? As an example, I have right here, I didn't talk at all about my startups.
No, you didn't.
This is one of my startups. It's a pen. It's a pen that you hold in your hand, and it measures your trembling. So if you have Parkinson or some other disease where you tremble, a tremor, then this device will give you in 30 seconds a measurement of your condition. It's like a thermometer for your temperature. It's a thermometer for your, yeah. Now, that's a medical device. I know nothing about medical device. So I have to really step up my game to figure out what we're going to do with this product, right? So I invested quite a bit of money in this product, but now I have to get into the game, right? So that is always a challenge. And as a last, all my groups, all my projects, we communicate through WhatsApp. We don't use email. It's too long. You get the email chains and all that. We don't like email. At least I don't like email. So we use chat. It's much faster. You can react very quickly. You're always online, and it's much better. Also when I'm traveling. And the slogan that is on my WhatsApp is "One life, live it." So that would be my last. One life, live it.
One life, live it. Whoa. This was
so that would be
a
my
masterclass,
last.
Roderik. I mean, what I take away from our conversation is never to be afraid of making great changes.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Stay agile. Keep learning. One life, live it. Work as a team. And nurture your family.
Family first. Yeah.
Amazing.
Family first. That
Amazing.
is one of our mottos.
Wow. Roderik, this was awesome. That's all I can say. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you from the whole team at Acosphere. Thank you on behalf of our audience. I've seen beautiful messages. People are saying fabulous, powerful. You know, they're loving the talk. So thank you really very much for being with us today. Before we part, I would like to announce that next week, Thursday, same time, same place, we have another amazing speaker, Ian Helps, who will be interviewed by Gilles Acogny. Ian has a wealth of experience in teaching, not teaching as a professor, but in designing courses in leadership, and he will tell you all about that experience next week, Thursday. It is another interview not to be missed. Until then, Roderik, thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Always a pleasure.
Dear friends, our pleasure. Dear friends, thank you for joining, and stay safe, stay blessed. See you next week. Bye.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.